welcome back to Unstable. I am Jeff AKA Big Steck. Happy Sunday football out there, man. Watching Red Zone. I'm just having a good time, man. It's been a rough week. That's why I'm coming to you so late. We usually drop these on Friday, but at least I'm getting it in before a primetime matchup with the Vikings. Going to do a little bit of housekeeping while you're here watching. Make sure you give us a subscribe. We appreciate it. We're at 69 giggity, and we're trying to get to 100. So while you're here, help us out. Like goal, modest. Let's try and let's get to 10 likes. Definitely appreciate all the support. While you're at it, go to this AFC South show. Do the same. We're dropping 2 episodes on every pod, so help us out. Of course, we're going to be talking about the matchup tonight against the Vikings. Just ways to win, score predictions, injuries, etc. So, man, there's been a lot of good games on today, and Cowboys lost. Fuck the Cowboys. You love to see it. We don't. Man, I don't know if y'all were watching the Jaguars game. I had it going on Red Zone. That Barkley touchdown was, or not touchdown, but that Barkley run was something else. He did have a good touchdown earlier in the game too, but man, that spin and leap, backwards leap, that was a hell of a play. But got the games going on over here, and I'm having a blast, man. It's been rough. My kid went to the ER, so I wasn't able to do this on time. He's doing better, but yeah, it kind of screwed up the whole week. We had that buddy walk we were doing a fundraiser for, and didn't go to that because of it as well. But anyway, we're going to talk about the Sunday night matchup with the Vikings, and all I'm praying for is it's not a repeat of what we had the last time the Colts matched up with the Vikings. The best or the worst comeback in history, depending on if you're a Vikings fan or a Colts fan. But it was rough. Definitely hope that doesn't happen again. Obviously, Anthony Richardson benched. Flacco's going to go. And if you've been watching the games, you know that right now Flacco does give the Colts the best chance to win. And there's a lot of stories going on, trade rumors, teams inquiring about it, and he's a 4th overall pick, and he's played like 10 games in the NFL. I think it's way too soon to talk about trading him. I think right now, hopefully, it's mostly about development. Just kind of, I don't want to say a humbling experience for him, because I would say losing most of your season on a shoulder injury should humble you at least a little bit. But yeah, it's tough, man. He wasn't looking good. I think he was completing somewhere around 40% of his passes, worst in the league. That's NFL's a what have you done for me now league. So, he just wasn't cutting it. I think the stats were a little bit worse than how the actual game went against the Texans. Yeah, that pick was a disaster, but there was a lot of drops. Granted, some were behind, but, if you're a receiver, got your hands on the ball, you should catch it. So, but right now, Flacco is the starter, and they said going forward, who knows how long that is, coming from a coach, but if people want to talk about confidence with Anthony Richardson, it's like I'd say him throwing, worst in the league in completion rate, and that disaster of a pick. Which one kills your confidence more? Keep going out there and just having disaster after disaster, or taking the bench, learning from a Super Bowl MVP. If this doesn't help him, I don't know what in the future would, but I'm hoping this isn't the last that we've seen of Anthony Richardson as a Colt. Obviously they took him 4th, so there's a lot invested in him. I just hope he learns, develops, and gets better. Going forward at quarterback, I don't want to look too far ahead, but I don't know if the solution is you sign Flacco for another year, or you just roll Anthony Richardson out there and again in year 3 and hope that it pans out. But I hope he's got his notepad on. I hope he's reviewing film. I want him to succeed. So it is disappointing that it came to this, but hopefully it's just a learning experience and he gets better from it. But Flacco's getting the start tonight. I think it does give the Colts a better chance against Minnesota to win. We're going to look at injuries real quick. For the Vikings, looks like the only 2 out are Blake Cashman and Taki Taimini. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but yeah, it looks like they're not too beat up. The only person out for the Colts is Bernard Ryman. Kwity Paye is questionable to go tonight, but I expect him to go. Bernard Ryman is kind of a blow being out. He's improved every single game at left tackle, and he is a staple on this line. And obviously, it's important for a statue quarterback. I mean, Flacco has shown he has a little bit of wheels, but you need that left tackle, that blind side solidified. So Bernard Ryman being out does kind of it's a blow to the Colts, but hopefully they do something where it's quick hitters, fast passes, and a lot of Jonathan Taylor. I pretty much drill that home every single game. The strength of this team is the Colts offensive line. One of the best in football. They didn't really look at against Houston. He was, to Anthony Richardson's credit, he was under pressure a lot in that game. But yeah, protecting Flacco is going to be paramount and opening up those rushing lanes for Jonathan Taylor. If the Colts fall behind against the Vikings, I don't know if they have the right coach play calling. I'm not just talking about Steichen, I'm talking about Bradley, to be able to mount a big comeback against the Vikings. And I know the Colts built up a big lead against them last time and dropped the ball big time. That's putting it nicely. But yeah, if they fall behind, I don't see the Colts coming back in it. But I think if the Colts can get ahead, I think they have all the tools to be able to maintain that lead. They just got to maintain possession. Even if they don't put 3 or 6 on the board, they can't keep going 3 and out. That's been a big issue. The defense does its job, comes up with the turnover, comes up with the stop, and they do nothing with it. You gotta give your defense at least a breather. You gotta help them out. I mean, I think the Colts have lost their games by a combined 14 points. So they've been in every single game this year. They lost to the Texans by a grand total of 5 points. So while it has been ugly at times for this defense, they have done enough to keep them in the game. And I will say on the flip of that, Jacksonville, they lost by 3, but I can't remember what the final score was. It was in the 30s. You score that much, you should win that game. So that definitely, I think that game falls hard on the defense. But there has been other games. Texans, they lost by 2. There was missed opportunities on offense. Kind of the same story in Houston. Missed opportunities. Couple of really boneheaded plays. But they've been in every game that they've played. So at least they haven't gotten blown out by anybody. So I hope I'm not jinxing it by saying that. I definitely don't want a Sunday night disaster. Colts, we bitched all off season about not having a primetime game, and they flexed us into a primetime. So I just hope they make a good game of it. And there's been some disastrous primetime games for the Colts, and you don't want that. So at least keep it close. Please keep it close. But no, I think if they lean on that offensive line and lean on Jonathan Taylor, I think they have a really good chance at pulling off this upset. I guess I could look up betting on this one if anybody out there is interested. I mean, you could Google it yourself, but that's all right. I'll do the work for you. I'll look it up real quick. The Vikings are 5.5 point favorites, which I think is – I really thought that the Vikings would be more favored than that, but I'll take it. Man, I'm nervous about this one. I think the Texans game kind of started the Colts' rough stretch in their schedule. And, it's just continuing with this. It makes me nervous. Justin Jefferson, he's obviously one of the league's, if not the league's best receiver. So it'll probably be, I would assume, Jalen Jones on him. And this will be a really, really good test for him. Man, the secondary makes me, me and Alex on the show we've bitched about this secondary a lot. In recent weeks, it seems like they've done better. I mean, they let up a few big plays to Jacksonville. For the most part, I think they did well against the Texans, but they're pretty much running out their third and fourth string receivers at this point. So it's maybe we just haven't seen enough talent against them to determine if they're actually doing better, if it's just their matchup. But this season, Jalen Jones has been pretty good, but he hasn't faced Jefferson. He hasn't faced anybody like him. So it'll be interesting to see what Gus Bradley does. I just have a bad feeling he's going to go back to that bring in 4, let their quarterback sit back there, and it's going to be too much time to cover someone like Jefferson. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of big play opportunities for the Vikings. I hope Gus Bradley kind of does the same thing he did against the Texans. It seemed like he got a lot more creative, which I've been begging for. He did get CJ Stroud was under a lot of pressure. He just looked better than he has in the past against it. So they need to do the same against the Vikings. The game plan's been the same pretty much all season. Run the ball well, keep possession, run the clock, keep the clock in your favor. A lot of these games, it's been heavily favored to the other team. You just look at the first couple weeks, the Colts only possessed the ball for 40 minutes total in those two games. So maintain some drives, keep Jefferson, and that I would say it's a high-powered offense right now for the Vikings. So yeah, just keep them off the field and put their quarterback's ass on the ground. That's really the easiest way to put it. You can't really lean on the secondary too much, just because I just don't think they're that good. Not for the weapons that are in Minnesota. They're going to have to make that quarterback throw before he's ready. And it's not even so much about getting sacks. It's just about letting him know you're there. Let him know you're there. Hit him. Put your hands in his face. Hold on, his face, Mac. We don't. For the love of God, we don't want any more penalties. They called us for enough of those against the Texans. But yeah, just let him know you're there. Let him hear those footsteps. And even if you don't get to him, make him feel the ghost. I keep hoping for a big game from Latu. Really hasn't happened. He had that one good sack fumble against the Bears, and I can't remember what other game he picked up another sack, but I just don't feel like Bradley has used him the way that he should be used. He's very athletic, very fast. He's a very speedy edge. And it really just seems like they have him kind of bull rushing on his own, and that's just not how I see. Obviously they probably know more than I do about this, but he's very, very athletic. And I don't see him as just that bull rushing type. I feel like you need to shift him around, move him around a little bit more. He is getting a lot of attention, kind of double teams, whatever, to keep him at bay. I think you need to start bringing someone behind him. And that's kind of where that creativity I was talking about with those Gus Bradley rushes. It looked better against Houston. And they just got to keep it up. Because if they sit back and they do what they did against Jacksonville, where they only pressured him one time on his 4 dropbacks, which was historically bad. If they do that again against the Vikings, I don't see this one being close. So this game is really going to lean on the trenches and what Bradley does on defense to throw off the Vikings offense. I think that they have a really good team in Minnesota, which I didn't think I'd be saying going into the season, but they've looked really, really good. And it's surprising. But this Vikings team makes me nervous. The Rams beat them, so that kind of leaves me hope. But Darnold is having a hell of a season. I really liked Aaron Jones, and when he was with Green Bay, I hate Green Bay, but I always had him in fantasy football. Yeah, sometimes it did me a disservice. He's hurt often, but when he's on the field, he's really good. So the Vikings have a lot of weapons. They really do. And the only way I can see the Colts really keeping their offense today is, like I said, just pressure. Just get after him. Make him pay for throwing the football and not running with Jacobs. And of course, they've got to force them into those passes. They've let up a shitload of rushing yards. That can't happen. Even against the Rams, he still put up 60 yards, which isn't great, but Aaron Jones has the ability to be a very effective weapon, not only in the pass, but in the rushing game. Justin Jefferson had 115 yards. I feel like that guy gets, if I were a betting man, I'd still put 100 yards on him, but I hope not. But it'll be a real test for Jalen Jones. This will be a great test for the secondary. But I'm very optimistic. I really am. I think Flacco, he's looked very good. I think he's only had 1 interception in his starts, like 7 touchdowns. So this could be a very high-scoring game. Flacco has a great, chemistry with Josh Downs. They're effective. They're great together. I'd like to see more from Michael Pittman. He's been battling a back injury, so I'm sure that's had, and rumors are he's had it since the preseason, so that might be kind of a reason for his, I guess I would call it low production. But when he's gotten the ball, he's done good things. It's just that he hasn't gotten it often enough. Oh man. Sorry, I was just watching the Eagles stomp the Jaguars. I don't cheer for the Eagles or Sirianni often, but right now, go Eagles. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of good players on this Vikings team, and it makes me nervous. The Colts are going to have to play a very clean game. They were penalized a lot against Houston, which is something that's very uncharacteristic of the Colts. Didn't agree with a lot of the calls. There's a couple I think they got right, not many, but it was a very uncharacteristic game for someone like Quentin Nelson. I think he was hit with 3 false starts, which, again, like I just said, very, very uncharacteristic. So cleaning that up is going to be the key. They are playing in Minnesota. Sorry, it's just been a long week. Yeah, they are playing in Minnesota, so that makes me a little more nervous. They can be loud. They can be really loud. It can be a little bit. Flacco's been around the block a few times, once or twice. So I think he's heard the crowd noise before. I don't think that'll rattle him too much. And that might have played a little bit into the decision to keep Richardson on the bench, just because, again, he hasn't played a whole lot of games in the NFL. And it can be a rough environment in Minnesota. I don't know if y'all have seen too many of the games in Minnesota, but they can be loud. It can be a rough environment. And I'm not saying unruly, but fights and stuff like that. But they get loud, and that can rattle you. I don't know if you guys have seen that college. I think it's the Aggies that do it in baseball. If they have so many balls pitched in a row, they go ball 4, and they just keep going until they pitch a strike, and that's very rattling. And it's kind of like that in Minnesota. They're loud and they let you know it. So but Flacco's seen this shit before. This isn't his first rodeo in a loud environment, so I'm not too worried about that rattling him. It's just kind of that communication. But again, hopefully they keep those false starts under control, because just Quentin Nelson gave him 15 yards. So they just got to play cleaner. Limit the mistakes, and just please get after Sam Darnold. Don't let him get comfortable. That pass rush is what makes me the most nervous. I'm still having bad memories about that Jacksonville game, just letting Trevor Lawrence kind of get back into the form that I guess he was midway last season, because he kind of in a rut the last like 10 weeks or something like that of football. So they let him look really good, and I just don't want to see that with Darnold. But Darnold's looked really good in a lot of games, so I just hope they get a lot of pressure. I can't say it enough. I really hope for a big game from Latu. Like most of us, he's picked 15th first, defender off the board. It's time for him to start making a big statement, start winning, even if it's 2-on-1. He's got to start winning that. I at least want to see him get a couple of sacks this game. That'd be really nice. Just a little bit more of an impact. There's been too many games where he hasn't even had a tackle. That's not the kind of production you want out of your 15th overall pick. And obviously we didn't have the production we wanted out of our 4th overall pick last year, but it is what it is. Thankfully, Joe Flacco's still playing at a really high level at 39. So at least we can say, hey, we have, once again, one of the best backups in football. So, but guess I'll get a little bit off topic from the Vikings here. And I keep asking it, and now I think I'm kind of going to give an answer. And I think the benching of Anthony Richardson kind of answers that question that I'm about to ask. But is there a world where Ballard keeps his job and is the GM in 2025 if the Colts miss the playoffs this year? And given the scenario of everything that's going on here, and they even said that we're in win now. I don't feel that Ballard has done enough. I don't feel he's been aggressive enough. It's kind of like when you're playing defense and you got a little bit of a lead and you go into prevent defense. And as we all know, prevent defense prevents you from winning the game. So he's been very conservative in his approach, not only in free agency, but even in the draft. Like he got really aggressive that year when he used the first to get Buckner. I love the trade. Obviously, it's panned out really well. He's one of the best defensive tackles in football. And there was the other year he traded up in the second where we got Jonathan Taylor out of it. And I thought it was great. He was being aggressive in the draft. He hasn't been. He hasn't been aggressive in free agency or the draft. He just kind of sat back and, now we've got, a bad secondary. Juju Brent's hurt again. And now we're starting. And Jalen Jones has been playing well, at least for a sixth rounder. I don't know if he's starting on a lot of other teams, but he is our best corner right now. So I don't think he was drafted in the sixth round, projected to be the top corner on the Colts, but that's where we're at right now. I think, and I will say that trade for Snead, he hasn't been very good with Tennessee. Granted, no one's been great in Tennessee, but maybe him being aggressive there wasn't being aggressive there was a good thing, but it still would have been nice for him to go after some corner. It would have been nice to see him be aggressive in the draft. So I think this game right here is going to be kind of telling of what happens with Ballard, because and I feel like it's going to happen where Justin Jefferson and Addison, they kind of torch you and you didn't do anything to address it. You're in the draft, and I know you wanted to go after why is his name slipping my? Sorry, I don't know why I'm phasing out on his name. Adonai Mitchell, Jesus. Brain fart. Sorry, it's been a long couple of days. When you spend the night in the ER, everything gets thrown off. Yeah, he wanted Adonai Mitchell there in the second, but I still feel as though you could have moved up in the second because Cooper DeJean and I think McKinstry was still there. Kool-Aid. I feel like you could have moved up and still gone back into the second and gotten the receiver you wanted. So, and there was draft capital to play with. I think three or four of our draft picks that were in the later parts of the draft aren't even on the team anymore, not even on the practice squad. So there was definitely capital that he could have used to move up, and it wouldn't have made a damn bit of difference. And we would have gotten one of the top corners in the league and still gotten his guy in Adonai Mitchell. So I would have liked to see him be more aggressive. So I guess to answer my question, yeah, if the Colts miss the playoffs, I don't see how you could justify him still being the GM. And I think this game right here is kind of that jumping point where if we can't at least, I don't think there's any stopping Justin Jefferson, but if you can at least contain him to a poor outing by his standards, which I'm talking, 50, 60 yards, which is still not terrible. But if you can't just kind of keep him under wraps, not let him get behind you, and he burns you long. And of course, if they keep him out of the game, then you've got, Addison, who's been pretty good. You've got him running free. So this will be a very telling game of, man, Ballard dropped the ball big time. If this line can't keep Darnold, if they can't get his jersey a little bit dirty and they get a shitload of passing yards, I think this will be kind of the game where it's like, man, Ballard, you effed up, man. And he said, yeah, either if this team gets me fired, then I guess it is what it is. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know exactly what he said, but right now I don't see a scenario where he keeps his job and the Colts miss the playoffs. So the Colts have to win this week. This is a must win. They had to win one of those games against the Texans, and they fudged it up. So a little bit frustrating to go 0-2 against the Texans. They still have a game with the Titans, still have a game with the Jags, but man, it's tough to go to 0-2 to the division leader and still make the playoffs. The Colts need the Texans to drop hard is really what they need at this point. It's a good start that they lost to the Jets on Thursday. And the Jets hadn't been playing very good, but again, the Texans are playing third, fourth string, wide receivers. So not a lot of teams would look good with their top two weapons out. Joe Mixon still had a really nice day, but that's aside the point. He tore us up both games, which makes me really nervous about going up against these Vikings, man. I think they're a lot more consistent than the Texans. So that's why I'm worried about really worried about this primetime game. It's, this game was one of those highlight and circled games where after what happened the last time we faced them, this game was definitely one of the ones on the radar. And you don't want to get embarrassed like that ever. So I'm hoping that they're trying to keep this. I don't want to see him get burned in primetime, man. It's just it's happened a lot over the years, and I know you all as Colts fans are probably sick and tired of it too. You finally got a primetime game. Show that you deserve it. That's all I'm asking. Even just if you lose by 3, I can live with that. I mean, but like I said, if they lean on their offensive line, if they lean on Jonathan Taylor, I think they've got a really good chance to take this home. And it's good. I did pick the Vikings. We in the AFC South show on the Curtis Podcast Network, we do every week we do a pick'ems. We're in a pick'ems league together, and I'm right now leading the league. It's only by a couple of games, but I am leading. I did have 1 week where I was perfect. I picked all 14 games. Not to toot my own horn, but fuck it, I'm going to toot it. It's not easy to pick 14 games in a random week. It ain't easy. I just wish I had actually put money on it. That would have been nice. Unfortunately, I'm in Texas, and you can't do that without going to Louisiana or Oklahoma. So just legalize it. Just legalize the damn gambling already. Can't even use DraftKings or any of that shit here. Probably for the best. But yeah, I guess I'm going to get into score predictions, and I don't see a scenario where the Colts blow the Vikings out, but I can't see a scenario where the Vikings do blow the Colts out, and I don't think it's going to happen. I don't. I do think Flacco and Jonathan Taylor and this offensive line and that defensive front, I do think that given the right play calls and the right execution of those calls, I think they have the ability to keep it close and maybe just pull off the win in Minnesota. So it's tough for me to predict a score for this. I'm going to say 26-24 Colts. That's where I'm going to predict it for tonight. Man, I hope they do it. I do believe this will be a close game. I think the Vikings do offer a lot more on offense, like I said, but if they can keep Sam Darnold under duress, they can maintain possession. I think they can at least keep that big play game under wraps at least a little bit. I don't think there's a way that you shut out someone like Justin Jefferson at all, and I don't think the Colts have the secondary to do it. But I do think there's a way that they can at least keep him off the field. They just have to maintain possession, and that's something they haven't been very good at least for a majority of the time. They just got to. Joe Flacco just has to keep that offense running, keep it on the field, maintain drives, and at least put up 3 on the board. I do like aggression from Shane Steichen. I do like it, but there are times where you have to know to take the points, and there are times where you have to say, hey, we're taking the 3. There's been a lot of games that have been lost because Steichen was over-aggressive, especially early in the game. Goes for it, doesn't run it with Jonathan Taylor, just tries to get cute or think he's the smartest guy out there, and it just kind of backfires. So there are a lot of times where a field goal would have greatly benefited the Colts. And he's chosen to be aggressive. And I don't hate the aggression part of it. It's when you do it. And me and Alex on the show have greatly objected to when he's been doing it. So just be selective, do it right. I would, and I've said this before, I would like to see some Anthony Richardson on the field, kind of in like a Taysom Hill, one of those weird, gadget plays that the Saints run every so often in a game. Line him up as a running back. We'll put him under center, have Joe Flacco on the field too. I do feel like there are still creative ways to deploy Anthony Richardson just to get him a few reps. But, we'll see what Steichen does. It'll be interesting with him finally naming Flacco as the starter going forward. I would like to, like I said, see Anthony Richardson on the field at least 1 or 2 plays. Maybe it's like a flea flicker kind of thing from Joe Flacco just to launch 160 yards to see what happens. But I do hope this isn't the end of AR just because of how much they put into him. But I'll leave it up. I'll leave it at that. I'll say Colts 26, Colts or Vikings 24. Hoping for a good game. Colts finally got a prime time. I don't think they were slated for any this season, so they got this one flexed, and don't let us down, man. Let's get that win tonight. Otherwise, I'll probably drink myself into a coma. But no, go Colts. I'll see you most likely Monday as we go. Probably going to go live for the recap of this game. So enjoy football, Sunday football. Thanks for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Drop in the comments what you think the score will be. And please like, share, subscribe. Help us out. We are trying to get to 100. Yeah, we'll see you Monday. Go Colts. Let's get this win in Minnesota. Let's get back at them for that last game. We'll see you guys Monday. Be good people.